Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Reata Horsemanship Family, and I'm Luke Brown. I'm your host for the Q&A Wednesday. Just trying to get this computer set. All right, hopefully you guys can see me, and I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited to be part of this Q&A Wednesday. Every Wednesday throughout the year of 2024, we're going to be doing a Q&A Wednesday, and we're doing it live so we can help you understand horsemanship better and help answer some of your questions that you might have, whether it be about the membership, about anything in the membership, about the free stuff that we're giving, and also especially about horses and horsemanship. So I love doing this. I was just out riding all day today, mostly trail riding today on a couple of horses that I have in training, and I had a lot of fun. And if you have any questions about that, I did a training tip Tuesday. I actually filmed it today because it was raining yesterday, so I filmed it and I posted it. Hopefully you've seen that. I posted that in the Reata Horsemanship Family, and there's lots of videos to see. So we don't have any comments or questions yet. We'll get going. One thing that I wanted to mention is that I went ahead and started our podcast. So we have an Apple podcast and we also have a Spotify podcast. So I'm taking this and other podcasts that we do, and I'm combining them and putting them in there in the Apple and the Apple podcast and the Spotify podcast. You can find those by going to the reatahorsemanship.com website and just scroll to the bottom in the footer. There's a Spotify. Just says Spotify and there's one link that says Apple Podcast. You can click on either one of those. It's kind of hard to watch Apple Podcasts if you don't have an Apple product. So if you don't have an Apple product, you might want to check it out on Spotify. But those are audios from this video. So you can listen to that on your way to work or your way home from work. If you haven't got an earful of me yet, you can listen to those podcasts and you can go back and listen to ones you haven't heard before. So we'll just get started with our questions. And I'll mention something about the membership in a little bit. So Stacy's going to ask a question.
Okay, how do you handle seasonal changes in your horse's diet and exercise routine?
Okay, seasonal changes in your horse's diet and exercise routine. This obviously varies depending where you are in the United States or if you're somewhere else in the world. It's going to vary quite a bit. Here in Arizona, during the wintertime, we have lots of riding. The horses probably get a lot more exercise during the wintertime, because we don't have snow down here in the valley. And so that is, horses, you have to, we call it legging a horse up, getting a horse used to doing more exercise. If let's assume you hadn't done exercise, you personally hadn't done any exercise for 3 or 4 months, or maybe a year or a couple years, and then you go to the gym and you start to exercise, where you're gonna get very, very sore the next day and the day after that if you're not really careful with your exercise. So you have to make sure to plan for that and start to do things with your horse that's not quite as strenuous as you're going to do in the next month or so. So take a couple weeks to leg your horse up, get him used to the exercise, and that could be simple as walking and trotting. You can even do some loping inside of a round pen or what have you, but just be prepared that your horse might potentially get a little sore, especially if they're older and they have some arthritic joints. You might see some soreness creep in. But most horses are pretty resilient. For me, I rarely see a big change with horses. When I start riding them more, they come in for training, for example. When a horse comes in for training, that horse usually hasn't been worked with much. And then they come in and I start round pinning them. And sometimes we're loping a lot in the round pin and doing exercises inside the round pen. So I rarely have an issue with that. If a horse gets a little bit sore, I just slow it down and do something not so strenuous. But you do want to be careful. If you're on hard ground, you want to be careful about bruising the hooves and damaging the joints. If you're on real soft ground, like in deep sand or something, you got to be careful about straining your tendons and pulling muscles and such. As far as feed goes, well, let's go back to the summertime in Arizona. So in the summertime, it gets really, really hot. And a lot of people, they don't do much with their horses. Maybe they do a little bit early in the morning and then let their horses rest throughout the day when it's so extremely hot. It can get up to 115, 120 degrees here in the valley in Arizona. So People let their horses rest more. Now, if you're up in the northern states like North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, those states, you're going to have, in the summertime, you're going to have a lot of time to ride. And so you just kind of flip it. In the wintertime, it's icy, it's snowy, it's colder, it might be muddy. And you just have to be careful about, like in the wintertime up in Montana, be careful about riding on ice. You got to be careful about the snowballs packing in the horse's hooves and bruising the soles of the hooves. I had a horse one time that had a bruised sole from snow packing. So if it's wet snow and it's starting to freeze, that snow's going to pack. And there are specific shoes that you can put on your horse that will help those snowballs not to accumulate and pack in there in the sole of your horse's hoof. So there's some things you can do to remedy the situation when there's a lot of snow. And be careful about ice. It can get real slippery and very, very dangerous if you're riding horses. So when it's icy and snowy, you want to slow everything down, slow everything way down. And if your horse gets really sweaty and you go to put them away and they're just drenched in sweat, it can be problematic if it's icy, if it's sub-zero temperatures or sub-freezing temperatures. You have to be careful and want to dry your horse off as much as possible before you turn them out. A lot of people will try to work on not getting them into a heavy sweat when it's the winter time and it's really, really cold. So as far as feeding goes, in the summertime in Arizona, it's so hot. You want to make sure that your horse is they have water and they're drinking plenty of water. I don't like self-waterers for the fact that I can't tell how much my horse is drinking. So if all my horses have troughs and I fill those troughs, and then I can tell most of my horses during the summertime will drink 30 to 40 gallons a day. In the wintertime, it's 10 to 15 gallons a day. So it goes way down in the wintertime. So just be prepared for that. They're drinking less. It doesn't mean that they're less hydrated. They're just they're not sweating it off, and they're going to use a lot less water in the wintertime. And that goes the same for other parts of the country as well.
Okay. Do you want to touch on the feed a little bit?
When it comes to feed with horses, there's a stigma out there when it's real hot that you don't want to feed hot feed, like don't want to feed a lot of grain, or you don't want to feed a lot of alfalfa. Most of my horses, they're in training, they're getting worked quite a bit, and I try to get them on full alfalfa. They just eat as much alfalfa as they want, and sometimes I'll add a little bit of Bermuda in there, but I don't worry too much about alfalfa. It just doesn't seem to be as problematic as some people might think it is. A bigger problem actually is going from feeding alfalfa to feeding Bermuda. If you make that change suddenly, horses can have problems with getting colic because that Bermuda grass will bunch up like a nest inside the horse's bowels, and that's when they can have some severe colic. So, alfalfa sometimes creates runny manure, and Bermuda can create buildup and colic that way. So you have to be careful. Just make sure that they're drinking plenty of water, whether it's in the wintertime or the summertime. And, in the wintertime, sometimes horses will colic because they're not drinking enough water. So you can add electrolytes to your water to make it a little more tasty and make them want to drink that water. And the same thing in the summertime in Arizona, a real hot climate. You want to make sure, I personally don't add electrolytes typically to my water. I usually have free salt for my horses. As far as feed goes, you don't want to feed a lot of grain when it's real hot. That's my opinion. And honestly, my opinion is I see people feeding too much grain and too much supplements. Just a steady diet of hay is what most horses need, and they rarely need much more than that, especially if you have good alfalfa hay.
So the next question is, share your best advice for new horse owners starting their journey.
Okay. My best advice for new horse owners starting their journey. I think the best advice I could probably give you if you're just starting your journey as a horseman or horsewoman is to be patient with yourself and focus on one trainer, one school of thought. I was thinking about this today as I had been going and watching another very, very talented trainer, Josh Lyons. I've been watching him. He's just a couple miles from here. And I've been talking to him and studying him and learning from him a little bit. And I realized that, if you, especially when even I can get a little bit confused if I'm really focused on a certain method of how I train horses and then I go and listen to somebody else, it takes a lot of mental power to try to shift or sift through all of that information and make sense of it. So one of the things that I would recommend is, whether it's me or some other horseman, find somebody that you really trust and that you think does a good job training horses and teaching horsemanship, and follow them basically religiously for a couple of years. Make sure that you really understand their methods and understand how to utilize their methods before you go on and start looking at other trainers. I have no issue whatsoever at going and looking at other trainers after you study me. I do that. I study other trainers, but I try to keep it to like one trainer a year myself, and I try not to vary much more than that, because if I do, I start to get confused. Everything starts to get muddled up, and there's so much information and so many varying schools of thought that you have to be careful about inundating your mind with too much information, and then you just get confused. There's a lot of advice out there. Some advice I would give you is, try to not only just follow that one trainer and that one school of thought, but try not to get too involved in asking questions of other members or other people in your groups. We see a lot of horsemanship groups and horse training groups where people ask a question and there's multitude of answers that vary from one end of the spectrum to the other. Some people believe in positive reinforcement. Some people believe in negative reinforcement. Some people don't believe in either. There's a lot of training tools and methods out there that you can really get confused by if you don't just follow one and stick with it for a while. And then you want to just be patient with yourself and take a little bite at a time, learn something. What we're going to do in the membership is start creating courses that have short, simple videos that you can go watch. You can learn something. You can go out and practice with your horse. And if you get better at that one thing today, and you keep doing it this week, you're going to get much better at that one thing, and then you can build on that, and it's like a puzzle, and eventually you can create this beautiful picture, and that is a safe, fun relationship with your horse if you just take it one step at a time, take one bite at a time. You don't eat an elephant all at once, you eat it one bite at a time, and you don't take a journey of 1,000 miles without taking that first step. So it takes one step after the other. So don't get too overwhelmed, take your time, be patient, follow one person, and then as you start to advance and you start to understand better, then you can start to ask advice from other people and other trainers. But try to go to a trainer who has been there, done that, and there's a lot of people that know way more than their trainers. There's a lot of people I talk to that, they think Pat Parelli is terrible with horses. Well, he's one of the greatest horsemen in the world. So when somebody who doesn't even know how to train their own horse will talk bad about Pat Parelli, I understand that, this is the type of person that will give advice to you. So as a beginner, don't take advice from those people. Take advice from people who've been there, done that, and I certainly have had my share of experiences with horses and horsemanship.
Okay, so if you're getting started in horses, what kind of trainer would you look for? And would that incorporate learning to do work with your horse on the ground versus just taking riding lessons? And what's the difference?
Okay, that's a great question. I've seen a lot of situations where somebody is just getting into horses and they take riding lessons and they do it for years and years and years. And then they come to me and they don't even know how to back their horse out of their space. And their horse is real pushy and disrespectful. So in my opinion, I think groundwork is one of the greatest ways you can learn to connect with your horse and be the leader for your horse. Learn to be your horse's leader. If you can do that through groundwork, for example, backing him out of your space, sending him around you, lunging them, teaching your horse to lunge at a walk, trot, and canter, teaching your horse to do lead beside or pass through between you and a fence or over an object. If you can teach your horse to do those things, Then if you get in a situation when you're riding your horse and it gets kind of sketchy and you feel like it's dangerous, you can step off and utilize those tools as a leader, as your horse's leader, to help your horse through that. If you neglect the groundwork, you're really neglecting half of what horsemanship is all about. And really the foundation of horsemanship, I believe, is your groundwork. There's too many people that just want to go to riding and they don't get a good foundation in their groundwork. So that's why in our foundation clinic at Reata Horsemanship, I teach a lot of groundwork. I teach riding as well, but I teach a lot of groundwork. I want to make sure that you understand how to get your horse out of your space. You understand how to back your horse up. You understand how to move your horse's shoulder over. You understand how to disengage your horse's hindquarters on the ground. And when you understand that and you get those concepts, then when you're in the saddle, you have that concept in your mind, and now you can utilize your cues and your aids to help your horse do the same thing in the saddle. But start with groundwork. That's what I would recommend.
Okay.
Start with groundwork.
We have another question here. It's, what's your strategy for keeping your horse engaged and stimulated?
Okay. A strategy to keep your horse engaged and stimulated. So there's probably two purposes for keeping your horse engaged and stimulated. One is keep them connected to you and responding to you. And two is making sure that they're not starting to get reactive. If they stop listening to you and start thinking about everything else around your environment, then they're going to become less safe. So keeping them engaged, it's simply just getting them to move their feet when you're in the saddle or off the saddle. So if you feel like you're in a dangerous situation, you can step off and move their feet. But when you ask your horse to do something and they respond by doing it, they respond appropriately with the right intensity and duration and direction, then it's a lot, you're gonna have a lot safer relationship with your horse.
Okay. We have had a lot of questions in our Facebook group, and then just coming individually to us about what are our upcoming clinics,
Okay.
and what level of rider are they for?
Okay, that's a great question. So we have 3 clinics coming up. Well, we have 4. We have one this coming weekend. So in just 3 days, on Saturday, January 27th, we're starting our Obstacles and Trail Clinic at P&M Arena in Mesa, Arizona, Northeast Mesa. And that's going to be an incredible clinic. And most of my clinics, I do want, now we in the future, we may have a clinic where it's just all groundwork and you don't have to be riding your horse. But these clinics that we're doing right now, the Obstacles and Trail Clinic, our Fundamentals Clinic that's coming up as well in February, and then another Obstacles and Trails Clinic in February, and then we have a Problem Solving Clinic. Now the Problem Solving Clinic in March, that clinic potentially could, you could bring a horse to that isn't being ridden. So this horse might have a rearing problem or might not want to get in the trailer, might have a severe problem with getting in the trailer, not wanting to get in the trailer, or pawing or kicking or whatever it is, being reactive. So you don't have to be riding that horse in the Problem Solving Clinic. All the other clinics, the Obstacles and Trail Clinic and the Fundamentals Clinic, we will be doing some riding. Now, you can skip the part of riding if you're not riding your horse. You can continue to work on groundwork. That's fine as well. But you get the most out of the clinic if you can ride your horse. And your horse should be relatively comfortable riding in another group of horses in an arena on a relatively loose rein.
Okay, if they're uncomfortable around other horses, are you able to address that issue in the obstacle trail and riding clinic?
Yeah, so if a horse is uncomfortable around other horses, we can certainly work on that issue in that Obstacles and Trail Clinic. So, I'll take you at your level, and your horse doesn't have to be perfect. Probably if you thought your horse was perfect, you wouldn't be wanting to do the clinic. In most cases, your horse is having some kind of issue, and that's why you want to be in the clinic. So it's we can work on that. We can work on buddy sour issues. We can work on being reactive when other horses start to pick up their energy, pick up their speed. We can work on those things, because if you're riding out on the trail, all those things are going to happen. Energy is going to go up. Horses might trot past you or trot in front of you, or you might pass some wild horses out there in the Salt River or wherever you're at. Or you might be riding home and your horse starts jigging and wanting to hurry home. You might have some friends that like to go really fast and you don't want to go fast. So we can address all of those issues in those clinics for sure.
Also, can people audit or spectate those clinics on Saturday and Sunday this coming weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. You can audit / spectate the clinics for free. Just come and check them out. We don't charge for auditing our clinics at this point. We want you to come. We want you to learn. We want you to experience what it's like to just by watching other clinic participants and watching how I teach. We really have a different kind of clinic than a lot of clinicians out there. We only have a maximum of about 8 to 10 people in our clinics. I have an assistant usually, and we want to really focus on helping people improve their horsemanship. And if you have a safer, better horse at the end of that clinic, that's exactly where we want you to be. And you're going to feel so much more confident after two days, sometimes 3 days in those clinics.
Share a moment when your horse surprised you in a positive way.
Okay. I could share a moment that happened today. So share a moment where a horse surprised me in a positive way. Sometimes horses can be challenging and can take a while to break through that wall. Sometimes horses build up a big wall, and it might be from their experiences in the past, or it might just be their disposition, their nature. But some horses take a while to come along, and then when they start coming along, it's pretty amazing, and it's an amazing experience. And what happened this past weekend, so about 4 days ago, I actually went out riding with my dad. My parents came down from Colorado. They were watching a dance with my daughter, and my dad went on a trail ride with me in the morning, and I rode a horse. His name is Governor. He's a 3-year-old. He's a big old sorrel quarter horse gelding that has been kind of challenging to start. He's just has a hard time letting down, a hard time relaxing, and it can kind of be a little bit of a stinker too, and get kind of aggressive and bullish. But we went out on a trail ride, and it was the first time I'd ridden him with another horse, and he went out with this other horse and just did amazing. And when we started the trail ride, he was a little bit sketchy and kind of didn't like the fact the other horse was walking beside him. But then probably 30 seconds to a minute later, he really relaxed, came into his own. And that was just an incredible trail ride where he was very relaxed. And we went all over the place, riding at a walk, trot, even a little bit of a canter. And that was a lot of fun. So that really surprised me. And then today I rode him out for about 3 hours. And he just continues to impress me. He's got so much speed, so much power, and he's really getting a lot more collected. I was able to lope him a lot down in the Queen Creek Wash today, and I just came home feeling so satisfied. And it's been so muddy that I haven't been able to get in my arena in the last couple days because of all the rain, and I just warmed him up by literally lunging him around at a walk and a trot, doing some hindquarter yields, got on him and rode off, and didn't look back. So he basically didn't have a hiccup throughout the whole ride, so I didn't have to do a lot of warm-up. And for him, that was a big deal and a great milestone that he reached. So that was fun.
Okay. One more question. How do you introduce a new horse to your herd?
Okay. This is one of the $1 million questions that I get, introducing a new horse to the herd. The rancher mentality in me says, do it this way. Just put the horse out in the herd and let him figure it out. That's honestly the best way in most cases to do it. You just put him out with him and let him figure it out. If you have a horse out there that is a big bully and is trying to pin your horse in a corner and kick the crap out of him and might hurt him, then that horse who's the bully needs to be taken out of that herd and reprimanded, put by himself. Usually I don't have a horse that's a big bully. Most of the time, like all the horses we have right now, our personal horses, they're very confident. And this happened with that horse I was just telling you about. I put him out with our horses for the first time, and I thought it would be good for him to get out there with them so he could learn, because he literally grew up in a stall. And that's one of his challenges, is he never grew up with other horses, and he was never reprimanded by other horses. He never learned to be to work with the other horses in his group. And so I put him out there, and I have 2 horses that just kind of put him in his place, and He got bit once, and that was about the end of it. And actually, his behavior became much better, and my warm-ups with him became better after I put him out with my horses. So I think that's the best way to do it, is just put them out and let them figure it out. Try to put them in a situation where they have room to move. Don't put them in a small location like a small corral or something where one horse might pin your new horse against the corral and kick him real bad or something. You want him to be able to move his feet and get away. So just putting him out in a relative, like we have a field that's probably a couple fields that are about 150 by 400 feet or something, a field like that. And that's plenty of room for them to move around and him to get away from them and learn how to respect the dominant nature of other horses. So that's my opinion. Sometimes people will introduce them by putting them on the other side of a fence with another horse. One problem with that is if you get two horses that are real dominant and you put one horse on the other side of the fence from the other, they start fighting through the fence and kick through the fence and get caught up in the fence. So that can happen. That could be dangerous. But there's always an element of risk to putting horses with each other. But the best thing you can do is just let horses be horses and let them figure it out. That's my opinion.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier an upcoming course that we want to be able to put out there. Do you want to touch on that before we end?
Yeah, so if you've been following, I just did a post yesterday or the day before showing all of the themes, the monthly theme, the yearly theme for 2024, the monthly themes, and the monthly books that we're going to be reading. So let me just real quick, and then I'll get to that course real quick. But let me just share with you now. Just look at that post. It was like a post yesterday, and I shared a screenshot of the 2024 schedule. The themes are: January is Think More Like a Horse, February is Seek to Love, March is Find Your Purpose, April is Be Honest, May Be Productive, June Treat Yourself Kindly, July Advance Your Horsemanship with Mentors, Coaches, and Trainers, August Think Positively, September, Find Meaning in Life, October, Seek to Better Understand Your Horse, November, Follow the Rules, and December, Be a Positive Influence. And all of those themes go with a certain book. And this month, it's Think Like a Horse, and we're reading the book Think Like a Horse by Grant Gallagher. So we're going to be doing at the end of this month, so probably it's right at the end of this month, we're going to be doing a Zoom call for members. So if you're not a member of Reata Horsemanship yet, we still have the $1 for the first month membership. You can go to reatahorsemanship.com, click on that $1 button at the top, and you can sign up for just $1. And then it's $20 a month after that. You can cancel anytime. After February 14th, our membership prices are going to go up to around $40 a month. So get in while you can, while it's this inexpensive. And one of the things that we're doing as we're building this membership and building content for you is we're creating courses within the membership. So these courses that I'm creating probably 2 courses this year. And this first course I'm creating is going to be called something like The Basics of Groundwork, or Back to the Basics with Groundwork. That I'm going to talk about a lot of safety and a lot of fundamental horsemanship concepts that are going to help you and your horse have a safer relationship. I rarely see this kind of information out there, especially organized in the way that I'm organizing it. So I want to teach those fundamentals, and I want to also teach the exercises, those foundational exercises, the groundwork and riding foundational exercises that are going to help you and your horse have that relationship that you really desire. So that course is coming up in the next couple of months. So I'm in the process right now of building that course. And that course will be sold for probably $299 or $399. But if you're a member of Reata Horsemanship, you get that course as part of your membership. So it really pays huge dividends when you're a member of Reata Horsemanship. You get a check-in with us. You get to be a part of our book club. You get a monthly new video. You get your courses, and you can get more direct access with me. So that's coming up. We're excited about that course. We're going to probably have another course, Back to the Basics, with foundational riding. And those are probably the 2 main courses. We might even create a horsemanship and horse safety course this year. So we'll see how it goes. But right now, a foundational groundwork, Back to Basics groundwork course that I'm creating, and look forward to presenting it to you It's going to be a lot of fun to see people progress in their horsemanship as they go through that course. So join our membership so you can be a part of that. Thank you guys for watching this Q&A Wednesday. I appreciate you being a part of it, and make sure I started a chat in the Reata Horsemanship family where you can go into that chat. It's a Q&A Wednesday chat, and you can type in your questions there. So we'll have some questions. You can either comment in this Q&A Wednesday live, or you can type in those questions and we'll read those questions during this live session. Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Talk to you soon.